Okay. A meeting of the Pennichuck Special Water being held today, September 30th, at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, and duly noted in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A, ;2, Roman numeral 2. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call. Mr. Clerk?
Alderman Moran. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Govea is here. Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Clee.
And I am here.
That's 4 in attendance.
Just heard the, also in attendance is Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Boisvert. I'm sorry, we also have Chief Legal Counsel, I'm so sorry, Steve Bolton. Isn't it awful? I had to go look. But Chief Executive Counsel, Mr. Boisvert, COO from Pennichuck, Don Ware, and Mr. Torres, Chief Financial Officer, and, oh my God, isn't it awful? I am blanking on everybody's name today. I apologize. Yeah, sorry. Tara King also here, customer service from Pennichuck. Public comment? Seeing none. Communications.
From John Boisvert, Chief Executive Officer of Pennichuck, in regard to Pennichuck Corporation revised quarterly report to the sole shareholder for the quarter ended March 31, 2024, as well as the quarterly report to the sole shareholder for the quarter ended June 30, 2024.
There being no objection, I accept the communications and place it on file. Unfinished business?
None.
New business resolutions.
R-24-092, authorizing Pennichuck Water Works Incorporated to renew and increase its fixed asset line of credit with TD Bank. I will make a motion to recommend final passage.
Mr. Boisvert, would you like to come? And you can bring anybody you feel necessary.
George, why don't you and I, you want us to sit or do you want us to?
Come on up,
Sure.
please.
Welcome to the front row.
Hey, this is where it's at. I like the little buttons I got here too, so,
Don't touch it.
not that one anyway, it says hype on it, so.
You don't know what some of them do.
Mr.
Is that the ejection?
Alderman Lopez's toys, yes.
Okay. For the record, John Boisvert, CEO of Pennichuck, and with me is George Torres, the CFO for Pennichuck. With respect to the fixed asset line of credit, I'm going to turn it over to George. This is his in the pitch on this one.
So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for meeting with us this evening.
Could you just state your name, please?
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
record.
George Torres, CFO and Treasurer of Pennichuck and its subsidiaries. So, this evening, what we're looking for is Board of Aldermen approval via recommendation by this committee to renew and enhance the current FALOC facility over at Pennichuck Water Works. The current facility expires in June of 2025. What we're requesting this evening is not only for a renewal of that current FALOC facility, but also an enhancement of the facility for a number of reasons. Number one, as most everyone here knows, currently the company is seeking approval for a merger of its 3 regulated entities under the Pennichuck Water Works subsidiary of Pennichuck Corp. If and when that is approved, what we're looking to do is to not only renew that FALOC at PWW, but also increasing it. And by doing that, what it will allow the company to do is now absorb the capital expenditures under the communities formerly known as Pennichuck East Utilities under the Pennichuck Water Works umbrella. The facility will be identical in all terms and requirements of the current facility. The current one is at $12 million. We're looking to enhance that for an additional $4 million, up to $16 million. And what that does is the additional $4 million also replaces the facility over at PEU, which is a $4 million facility with CoBank. So combining the two gives us a $16 million capacity, which mirrors what the two of them have individually. We're also seeking to have that renewal in place. It's been accelerated from June to January 1st. Now, that is contingent upon successful completion and approval of the merged utility. If this merger does not go through, then what we'll be seeking is just the renewal of the current PWW facility at the existing $12 million capacity, which the vehicle currently is in right now. And I'm here to take any questions you guys may have.
Are there any questions? Alderman Gouvet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a time-sensitive nature around this legislation? Like, to me, it seems like go one of two ways, whether that merger happens or not. Is this something we could take up after that decision's made, or is that something that needs to be made up now?
Well, if the merger does not go through, we will still operate under the current Faylock facility, which will be in existence through June. So this is basically contingent upon successful completion of the merger. If it doesn't go through, we'll continue working under the current facility, and at some point, we'll be coming back before this committee looking for a renewal of the $12 million Pennichuck Water Works Faylock.
Okay, thank you.
Questions answered?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Any other question? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. It sounded like you were talking about, the word before facility. You call it haylock? Or what?
I'm sorry. It's described colloquially as a Faylock, a fixed asset line of credit. And what that does is it provides short-term financing for Pennichuck Water Works for assets completed in the 2023, and in this case, for next year, it would be 2024 capital expenditures that are annually returned into a long-term facility via the April bonding event that occurs annually.
So this is John, just to further elaborate, and the fixed asset line of credit allows us to pay for all the water main and all the other stuff we're putting in the ground this year. And so what we do is once that's complete, we roll that into bonds the following year. We renew the fixed asset line of credit. So we pay for everything in a given year with the line of credit and then roll that into long-term finance in the next year. So it's like, just like a regular business would have a line of credit. We need a way to pay all of our contractors. We close all those out, and then we close that and turn that over into long-term 30-year bonds, and generally in the April timeframe of the following year.
And if I could further elaborate, Alderman Jettie, the Faylock facility has a clean-out provision. So on an annual basis, we are required by TD Bank to clean out the capacity, whatever the borrowed capacity is on the facility, which is then returned via a bonding event on an annual basis. And what that does is not only allow us to clean out the Faylock facility or the fixed asset line of credit, but it also supports the QCPAC process for PWW, which is an annual surcharge between rate cases that covers the principal and interest on the debt that was expended in support of those capital expenditures.
Yes.
Okay, again, you lost me there. A QC pack, what is that?
And QCPAC is Qualified Capital Project Adjustment Charge. So it's an annual surcharge that allows us to bill in rates on an annual basis the expenditures for the debt that was incurred that financed the capital expenditures in the prior year.
So
Okay.
when we construct a project, we immediately start paying the principal and the interest on those dollars, plus the property taxes, and it also includes a 10% adder to that to cover some other additional expenses and things. So it's one of those where we immediately start receiving the cost, but we have, other than that QCPAC, we have no other way of being able to start paying the principal and interest when the bonds come due.
Okay, and, yeah,
Yes, please.
so this has, this is not part of the merger request, correct?
Nope.
So whether or not you merge, you still need this financing,
Correct.
it sounds like.
That's correct. I mean, it is a little bit in the fact that if the merger did happen, we would want the approval for the, remember we talked about the combined Pennachuck East and Pennachuck Water Works, which would be 12 million plus the $4 million that we have right now with Pennachuck East. They would be combined into one. So what you have before you right now is, the assumption is that if that merger takes place and happens, then we would need that for the new entity, which would be a combined utility of Pennachuck Waterworks, Pennachuck East, and Pittsfield. So we would have that going forward. And I think, what was the question was asked earlier, if that didn't go through, ultimately, we wouldn't need the 16 million. We'd be back with a revision for only the 12 million for Pennachuck Waterworks at that time, if it doesn't go through.
Moreover, if I can add, Alderman Jettie, if the merger was unsuccessful, then PEU will still have the availability of the CoBank fixed asset line of credit for $4 million. What happens is, upon successful completion of the merger, we lose access to that FALOC facility, hence us requiring to increase that capacity $4 million to replace the former capacity we had under the CoBank.
CoBank can't loan to PEU anymore because it's not an entity, and Pennachuck Waterworks is too large for CoBank to provide that kind of financing. It's made for smaller utilities.
Yeah, CoBank only lends, it's a cooperative, so they only lend, they have a specific, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
Size,
but
demographic.
Yeah, demographic that they look at in order for them to lend, and PWW is much larger, and based upon the location of PWW, it's a more urban environment, that precludes them from lending to PWW.
Complicated.
Yes. Could I ask
Yes,
another
absolutely.
question? So what effect does this have on the, the Nashua rate players, payers?
Meaning that it's something that you see on an annual basis. We've been averaging generally between the $8 to $12 million worth of capital reinvestment every single year within the Pennachuck Waterworks system. So we can't say specifically to, Nashua, ratepayers, but we refer to them as our Pennachuck Waterworks ratepayers. So each year you'll see that, remember we talked about the qualified capital project adjustment charge? So if we were to bring $10 million worth of new assets or replacement or reinvestment in assets, new water main, for instance, into service, we would be starting, you would see the surcharge on your bill the following year that allows us to be able to collect revenues to pay for the principal, interest, property taxes, plus a little bit over coverage based on the rate making scheme that we're working with right now. So we can immediately start to pay those. Otherwise, we have no way of revenue stream to be able to pay those. And that was one of the compromises, or I wouldn't say the compromise, but one of the methodologies that was worked out through a number of different rate making activities that we've had. And so each subsequent rate case, that QCPAC surcharge goes along with it and gets rolled into a final set of rates every 3 years in theory. And then we start over again, because we will be continuing to reinvest in Pennachuck Waterworks and Nashua Core to the tune of $12 million a year, sometimes more. We have 80 miles of water main that are targeted to be replaced over the next couple decades, so there's a significant there, and also 2 reinvestments in our treatment facilities to meet the new standards that we're seeing, and what we heard PFAS, we talked about that, and a number of other regulations. So there's going to be a continued amount of significant reinvestment in primarily the PWW, but this what we call the Nashua Core system over the next several decades for sure.
I just want to clarify something. If there was no pun intended here, but if we weren't muddying the waters of a merger, and there was anything of that discussion, we would still be here talking about all of this without a $4 million additive to it. We would be talking about a $12 million. So if we didn't have any of that nature, we would be talking about a $12 million. This is not an assumption that there is a merger. We have to talk about the $4 million of it, because as they said, if in fact, in another discussion down the road when legislation comes through, if in fact it does happen, we leave them hanging if we haven't approved that $4 million, because then the PEU is kind of stuck without that $4 million because of the co-bank issue. That's the only reason why the $4 million is even being discussed, because it leaves them dangling. That's the only reason why the waters are being muddied. And again, I don't mean any kind of pun intended on that type of thing. That's the only reason why it's being discussed at this time. Normally, we would be just discussing the $12 million. We do it every year to talk about that kind of situation. Am I correct, gentlemen?
That's correct, Chairman Klee. This fixed asset line of credit at PWW, this facility has been in existence in PWW since 2013. And it's renewed on 2-year intervals. So whether or not this merger goes through, this facility will still be in existence. As she explained, not at the $16 million cap, but a $12 million cap. What this is a contingency, that if and when this merger goes through, we need to have the ability to finance any projects in the communities formerly known as PEU, to finance those projects. We will now lose access via CoBank, which was the facility or the entity that actually financed the fixed asset line of credit at PEU. And the way that's going to be paid for, because now under a merged entity, all the communities that were formerly under the PEU umbrella, those customers are now under the PWW umbrella. So it's not as if PWW will be paying any more. It's just now we are attracting the base that was in PEU to help pay for that additional $4 million capacity.
I apologize, Alderman Jettie. I didn't mean to cut you off, but did you have other questions?
No, you didn't cut me off.
Okay.
I was done. That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I do have one more question. What about the PAC? What about the aqueduct?
Right now, there are going to be some future projects for Pittsfield. Our hope is that we can secure, at least initially, they're not going to happen right out of the gate, but we're hoping to be able to secure some other funding for those, meaning like SRF loans and stuff, and the like, because those are projects that would really lend themselves to that. So as we get through this, we may, seeing it's such a small utility, it could probably fit under the same $4 million as PEU at this point in time. I don't foresee us having to come back right out of the gate for Pittsfield. We have a little bit of planning to do, but like I said, I think there's a couple of capital investments that we will need to make in Pittsfield, but they're not like today or next year. They're in the planning stage, and I mean, we need to put a storage tank in Pittsfield, but part of that is securing the land to put a storage tank in, and we haven't even started that conversation with landowners yet. So that will take a little bit of time.
Are there any other questions?
do
Yes,
have one
please.
follow-up.
Alderman Correa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess going back to kind of what Alderman Jettie said, and I just want to make sure that my understanding's clear looking at my notes. So I understand the renewal of the fixed asset line of credit. That makes sense. We've done that before. The increase to the 16 million, that needs to be done prior to the merger, or else it can't happen after the merger. Is that correct?
What will happen is it all depends, because it takes time once we get in there, because we'll have to do a separate, an additional financing petition and that whole process. We will miss the window of our capital investments period in the summertime, if you think about it. It's going to put us too far down the road so that we wouldn't have, we'd either have to rob Pennichuck Water Works side of it in anticipation of that, or, these other projects would have to be delayed at that point. And we do have some critical, projects that we have been working on in PEU, and we do need it right away.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess that's where I'm kind of getting hung up on.
Yeah.
It's just different of how we've done things before, which is
Yep.
usually you would do a merger, then you would get
Right.
kind of the extended line, but now it's kind of, I don't know, to me feels like it's putting the cart before the horse, really. but I think you're,
We're not going to take it. If there's no merger, we can't, we'll be right with CoBank and we'll be back to what was known and usual. This is just an unusual thing where once that happens, then we lose all access to CoBank. So it's,
Okay.
yes, there is this chicken and the egg, but once this happens, this can't happen. And then it delays that that ability to fund those projects that are, we're going to be into well into 2025, I think, a few months anyway, before everything all gets sorted out.
To, I don't mean to interrupt you. To be honest with you, my concern, actually, from the Nashua perspective of it, would be considering that there's some movement on the PEU side of it, that if they had to rob the PWW side of it, that where Nashua falls within the PWW, that maybe the Nashua or the PWW side would be pushed back to continue with the PEU side of it.
yeah.
So that would be my concern. So I would rather move forward, just my opinion, I'm only one vote within this group, I would rather move forward with let's move this forward, but then jump on it if the merger doesn't happen. Work with our legal counsel to immediately do an amendment to reverse this, to get the $4 million out of this if necessary. Again, I'm just one vote, just an idea that I had. I don't want to hurt the Nashua end of
Sure,
it.
of course.
So
Yeah.
that's just my thinking. So
If I could just
please, by
follow
all
up off
means,
that.
yes.
Yeah, so I think I can get on board with this. It's not really my favorite
Yes,
position.
I agree.
Not really my favorite way of doing this, but
I
I'll
understand.
support it.
Yeah.
And I think I just want the understanding of hopefully our board and this committee that if the merger doesn't go through, it goes back down. And I guess my question to you guys would be, do you see a situation where we would approve this, the merger doesn't go through, and you still want the 16 million instead of the 12 million line?
No, I mean, we really plan out our capital expenditures and our budgets over a 3-year period, and the look ahead for that is reviewed remember we talked about the QC PAC process at the PUC. We give them a 2-year look ahead as well, and so our budgets are kind of locked in at that. Now, I'm not going to say, I don't foresee a regulation all of a sudden change, that we'd have to react to within a 12 to 18-month period. It could be, you could have a hurricane where we need some, but let's knock on wood that doesn't happen. And also, too, to refer to Alderman Clee, we have about 30 streets that we'll be working on in 2025. Now, some of those are real tiny, small little streets that are under the city's paving program that we want to get in there and get out of. So there's a large amount of effort that's going to be put into the city of Nashua in 2025 that we've already have the projects designed and we're ready to get going with them as soon as we can break ground. So there's going to be a significant amount of expenditures that'll start to happen fairly quickly in PWW. So we wouldn't want to delay any of those because some of those are related. We're trying to get these old little steel water mains out that won't survive a 30-ton paving roller. So we want to make sure we get those out of the ground.
And if I can add, Alderman Gouveia, the current expression of interest that was included in your packet provided by TD Bank, that was made under the assumption that there would be a merged facility. Therefore, them allowing, or at least allowing them to look at the possibility of increasing it to $16 million. If there wasn't a merger, they would then go back to their credit review, and then we would have to start the process all over again.
Okay.
Because in their eyes, we don't need, if PWW is a standalone, on an annual basis, does not currently need more than $12 million. So we would have to go back to TD Bank.
Okay, that actually makes me feel better about this legislation, I think, that fact. So, okay, I can get on board with this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Alderman Jettie? Alderman O'Brien?
No, we're good, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. New business ordinances,
There's none?
general discussion. Public comment?
Alderman Chen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
Alderman Jettie.
So since we've talked a little bit about the, this idea of a merger, and since Corporation Counsel is kind enough to come tonight, I'm wondering if I could ask him a question about our role. So I'm not, I'm wondering about, the board, the city of Nashua is the sole shareholder of Pennichuck. And so I know that, the board of directors of corporations have, fiduciary responsibilities to the corporation. But I don't know, but I don't think stockholders do. Because I'm wondering about, what is good for, this proposed merged Pennichuck, may not necessarily be good for, the people I represent, the constituents of Ward 5, or people you represent, or all the, that we all represent, the citizens of Nashua. So I see a conflict there between the interests of the corporation and the interests of the constituents. And I don't mean to come at you out of the blue here. And if
This
you're
is
not
something
comfortable
that I thought
answering it,
This is not exactly out of the blue.
so I'm wondering if you could, help us understand what our responsibilities are to our constituents and to the corporation.
The simple answer is, as you expressed, shareholders do not have a fiduciary duty. They are allowed to vote in their own self-interest. So the shareholder, sole shareholder of Pennichuck Corporation is the city of Nashua. As the governmental body of the city of Nashua, you are fully allowed to exercise your best judgment as to what is in the best interest, long-term, short-term, whatever you believe balances out, what you believe to be in the best interests of the city. You are fully allowed to vote. You have no duty generally to the corporation other than as to how it affects the shareholder, which is the city of Nashua. So I don't think there is, in fact, a conflict. Now, there may be a difference of opinion. There may be 15 or 16 differences of opinion in this very room. And there may be differences of opinion between any of those people and the management of Pennichuck Corporation. But that doesn't impact the shareholder through its representatives, the Board of Aldermen, to vote in what they determine to be the best interests of the city of Nashua. Now, I think you'll be hearing more from management before we're finished with this as to why their proposal for merger, as well as in the existing rate design that is going on through a proceeding at the Public Utilities Commission, why that will be in the short-term best interest, and the combined package of the merger and rate design will be in the long-term best interest of the city. And as I say, it's up to the Board of Aldermen and the mayor to evaluate that and vote as they see fit in the best interest of the city.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up?
No?
There any other questions, comments?
I can add, you'll be seeing legislation on this at the next meeting. And presumably at the next meeting of this committee, it'll be dealt with in more detail.
public comment? Seeing none. Remarks by the Alderman? Seeing none. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to propose an amendment, excuse me,
No amendments.
a motion to adjourn. I get confused with the Roman numerals. Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we adjourn at 7:30 PM.